Hey guys, just wanted to call out this episode's a bit weird to listen to or watch. We were having really bad IT issues on this night. The service we were using appeared to keep dropping out. Um, Figured it out in the end. It was a Wi Fi issue at my end. So we have fixed it for future episodes, but this episode's a little clunky. So I've done my best to edit it so it's easier to listen to and watch. It's a bit shorter than normal. It's the best we could manage. So, yeah, enjoy. And thanks for bearing with us. Bye. Welcome back to the Republic of Middle-Aged Men who have all survived COVID. We're back after being off for several weeks. As usual, you've got myself, Tim, you've got Lachlan.
Howdy.
And you've got Ruben.
Hello.
Guys, COVID, done, behind us. Let's never have that again. That sucked.
I think Ribs would say you're being melodramatic because he seemed to cruise on through it.
Yeah, sounds like you got the worst of it there, Timmy. I didn't have to give up video games like Lachlan either.
Yeah, I think you got the easiest out of all of us, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
I must admit that when I first came down with it, I could not game. I could not watch movies. I was just wrecked. And unfortunately, whenever I'd lie down and fall asleep, my fever would go up. So the only way I didn't feel completely horrendous was having painkillers every couple of hours and just staying awake.
Oh,
so
weird.
Wasn't amazing. But anyway, that's done. No. So we're back. Thanks for persevering with waiting for us, everybody. And I must say, while I was sitting there suffering in my feverish state, I did think a lot around some of the principles we've learned on this show. Particularly things that were annoying me or that I was thinking about in my mind. I was like, well, this is an impression. So what is this impression, and is it what it seems? And is it in accordance with nature? Is it something that is in my control to change? No? Okay, throw it away. And that was good. Are you guys still thinking about that sort of stuff? I'll start with you, Lachlan. Have you still been applying any of these things?
Off and on. I'm pretty bad, I think, with maintaining anything like that. So if I don't use it the week I sort of get it, I'll probably forget about it. I've just got a really bad memory, right? So so I'm pretty bad for some of that stuff. But on the flip side, some things do stick with me, and I find I still flip back to stuff that's from the Republic from time to time. So when you're talking about that, Tim, I was just thinking about the sick man in the Republic who, if he's too sick to do his job, what's the point of living, mate? So yeah, keep on doing your job, right. or not. Can't sit at home with your ailments.
Give me a quick solution, or else forget about it.
Yeah, a quick recovery or a quick death.
That's it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So anyway, while I was off, didn't do much for the first few days, and then started being able to actually look at a screen. So finished playing Witcher 3, which was really awesome.
Good on you.
A friend of mine, I don't know if he's listening, his name's Abe. He has written articles for gaming magazines before, and he sent me a copy of his article that he wrote when he finished playing The Witcher 3, talking about his dismay of, now that it's over, what do I do with my life? So, yeah, it's a pretty amazing game. Well, that's right. There are people that just keep starting it again and finding all these different alternative endings and quests.
Well, Gwent is the true end game anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Witcher 3 is the side quest of Gwent, the way I play.
Yeah.
I'm playing Witcher 3 Gwent Tournament featuring Witcher 3. No,
What did you?
I've gotten too good at it.
How do you think it weighs up against the TV show? Because I actually really like the TV show, but it's probably the only time in history where it's kind of like I actually think the characters and the story are better in the game than the TV show, and the TV show is great. So how does that work? What do you think? Where are you at on that?
I want to see more of the characters from the video games in the TV show for sure. I can't remember that dude's name. Who's like the Riddler sort of guy who travels in time. What's his name? You know the dude, cheeky looking guy. Sure. He can stop time. You know that dude?
Yeah, he was in the expansion. I don't know what his name was, but Blood and Stone or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's great.
It's been a while.
I'd love to see him in the TV show, but I think the TV show, obviously, The Witcher is pretty good. I think it's on par with the game. Dandelion, I think, is better on the show than in the game. But I think everything else, the game's got it. I think the game is better. So, yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not unusual for the game to be better than the show when you really think about it. I mean, think of Doom. That's true. Think of Tomb Raider. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of quality of story, generally, not necessarily video game versus video game, like TV version of the video game, but I mean, in terms of just the quality of story, generally, almost always going to be better on TV or in the game.
I don't know. I mean, I think games are really struggling. Well, not struggling, but they're really trying to put story as a core fundamental. I mean, obviously, if you're playing a first-person shooter, story is not going to be the primary sort of concern. But I think there's been some really sort of great games with some fantastic sort of storyline in them. I think they're getting better and better because I don't know. I mean, TV itself, obviously, all the streaming services are kind of taking over from TV, and I think gaming wants to snag a good portion of that audience as well. So they're trying to get better at the story side, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think you can't just bank on graphics anymore. Most of the genres have been done, so it's going to be about the niche that you can offer of the world building and the characters more so than the graphics and the way it plays. So,
yeah, I think if you're weak on that, no matter how good the hype train is, you're not going to be able to survive. I mean, you look at Cyberpunk, and I think that was something I was super keen to play, but I found the story is pretty weak. You could put up with any glitches. I mean, they sort of got through all that anyway in the end, but had the story been a bit stronger, people would still be playing it.
Yeah.
What was that other game that was meant to be a Destiny killer that ended up being garbage? Where you're playing like in the machine robot things. You know the one I mean, don't you, Ruben?
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it. I think everyone's forgotten it.
There you go. There's the problem.
It
looked magnificent, but the story wasn't there. But,
was it the Anthem that crashed and burned really badly?
Anthem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played it, and I'm like, oh, this is cool, first level. And got to the end of first level, and I'm like, oh, that's all of the world they've made. There's nowhere else to go. Oh, okay. Guess we were spoiled with Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, weren't we? So, anyway. All right, well, let's jump into the book. So, we are up to, or chapter, I'll call it, 11. Now, I was just saying to you guys as we jumped on, I really love this one. I read this to my wife the first time I read it a few weeks ago. And, it really got her quite emotional, thinking about her dad. And we both sort of talked about it, and it's a really touching passage. So I'll read it, and then we'll talk about it. Never say of anything, I lost it, but say, I gave it back. Has your child died? It was given back. Has your wife died? She was given back. Has your estate been taken from you? Was not this also given back? But you say, he who took it from me is wicked. What does it matter to you through whom the giver asks it back? As long as he gives it to you, Take care of it, but not as your own. Treat it as a passers-by treat an inn.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Well,
What do you guys think?
you know, it's interesting. I mean, I must say I didn't take it as beautiful on the first cut because I just thought he was being a bit cold again. You know, but you know, I can understand the appreciation of. I mean, he's trying to get across things that, you know, people and things, everything is transient in the end, and you know, you need to appreciate it for all it's worth while you've got it, and you know, just be the understanding that it's not forever. Nothing is. So you've got that understanding from the get-go. You probably appreciate it more and get more from it, and I think that's some of the depth he's kind of looking at there. Maybe is that how you guys took it?
Oh, what do you think, Ruben?
Oh, I am. I think I say this every week, but I just wanted to know what's behind like these little statements. I too, I thought it was a really good one too. But I noticed that he refers to the giver, and in the translation, we all got the same translation, so it should be the same this time around. But the giver is it's got a capital G. So I was wondering to myself, what's that? I wonder what that's translated from, because obviously in our current day, you look at it, and if it's a capital G, you think, oh, that must be. You would assume that's a name or an entity. Yeah. So I just wonder if, in the context of this little part, whether he's referring to some kind of you know, personal entity, or whether he's something more broader or pantheistic. So
do you mean
basically,
like
what I'm saying is, who's the giver? What's the giver in this scenario? Basically,
I had a thought about that it was sort of going back to talking about like the fates that we sort of had in the Republic, and that was kind of like you being like given your lot. You remember they were assigning people lots for their life.
Yeah,
you could have like an easy lot or a hard lot or whatever. And so it was like you've kind of been given your lot, and that's your lot. You've got this person in your life for a set amount of time, and when the fates want them back, they take them back, you know. So I must admit, I took it quite literally like that, like you're saying, I think, Rubes. But I was sort of thinking it was probably the fates as maybe what they're referring to, the giver.
Yeah, I think that's likely too, but that's why I was just wondering specifically what he means by the giver and what it translated from. But it's in some ways it's not super important. The other thing I noticed with this too is he's once again the theme of ownership. Like he's constantly coming back to this idea of ownership. Like what's yours, what's really yours, what have you got control over when something, and then now he's basically saying if something's taken off you, you know, why are you getting upset?
Yeah, and it's again like not saying it's the thing. It's not because the thing's being taken away from you. It's you know, you're upset about the person that you're blaming for it or whatever else it is, and you know, is that a good use of your energy? He's just saying it's irrelevant if they're gone. They're gone. How it's happened is just how it's happened. I must admit I found that a little funny though too, because you know, just in the, you know, I suppose we've been so indoctrinated about talking about justice, and then I was like, wouldn't it matter like a little bit how they've gone, because maybe it was unjust, you know, and so maybe you got a reason to feel pissed. I don't know. I guess he's saying you got to take your measure, right, rather than sort of letting it run you. Maybe still seek justice, but don't get emotional about that. It's just you should seek justice because that's how our society works. But just don't spend your life getting worked up about it, you know.
Yeah.
There seems something practical and maybe healthy about thinking about the things that you have as not being yours. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like you can tend them. It's like he says treat it as a passerby treats an inn. I don't think it's like a flippant statement. I wouldn't be thinking that like like the rock stars are throwing televisions out the hotel window, that kind of thing. But just that idea of while it's yours, take care of it. But while it's not, let it go.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I was sort of having that think, oh, man, he's been a cold bastard. So it's like flipping back to when he was talking about like the jug the other week. If you break the jug, it's not a big deal. If your child dies, not a big deal. Like, and he's not saying it's not a big deal, but it's just in this same sort of thing. It's just you have to understand things that are outside of your control, and that if you know from the get-go there's the nature of something that it's going to not exist forever, then you know that before it happens. So why are you getting upset about it? It does seem about
the other thing it reminds me of is that old saying, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." And for some reason, whenever I hear that, I actually don't even know whether that's a direct quote from the Bible. I'm not sure. It could be. I'm sure it's probably in there somewhere. It's pretty bad that I don't know that. But whenever I hear that, I think of that really old Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie, because I remember when I was a kid. I think that was the first time I heard it, when the old Friar Tuck falls off the cart and breaks his wine, and that's what he says about it.
I wonder if it's in the Book of Job. I feel like that's where it'd be. If it was anywhere.
Well, I'll try to look it up, Timmy, if you want to share your thoughts on that quote, because you started out saying you can't approve it.
I found it really beautiful. It ties in with that, is it in accordance with nature? But then it also addresses the if it isn't in accordance with nature slightly, in that what does it matter to you through whom the giver asked it back? So, if someone has, taken your, I don't know what you'd lose back then, your donkey or something, yes, it matters that person's taken. You should pursue justice. But if at the end of you seeking justice, you still have not got justice, well, this is a way to be at peace with that. Because, ultimately a higher being has decided, well, you've had your time with that thing and now it's mine again. So I thought it was good. But it just, to me, like you're right, Ruben, about that sort of biblical idea of Lord gives and Lord takes.
You nailed it. Job 1:21.
Bang.
Too good.
Who's been listening to Catholic apologists for hours at a time for months? This guy.
What do you call it? That would. I mean, I'm sure. I have no doubt that when old mate wrote this, he wasn't thinking of that Christian idea. But when in this quote, when you've got giver with a capital G, and then later on he gives it you, and it's got a capital H, that kind of could fit pretty easily into that Christian framework.
I think at this time they were debating. I mean, we recall in the Republic, Socrates was challenging the idea of many gods, and that there's probably just one. I think by this point in time, there was considerable debate about that. So it could be that.
Yeah, because this is post. Is it post Aristotle? I think it's post Aristotle as well, and he, and he came to that same sort of similar conclusion to Socrates, that there is one.
Anyway, I thought it was just very well written, and yes, a lot of the philosophy I don't really go to my wife saying, "Hey, check this out," and when I do, like she loves me, so she listens and she tries to get excited with me. But when I read this one to her, she took it out of my hands and read it again herself, and then just started tearing up. And I was like, "Oh wow, this is great." She's seen something in there that I also see. So it was nice.
That's good, man. Yeah, I must admit, I found myself a bit challenged with this, and I think I was trying to understand maybe a little bit better the the idea of the Stoicism again, and so I did a little bit of reading, I suppose, to try and get my head around a little bit because I just kept on coming back to this. This just feels kind of cold. This distance we're trying to put in here. Um, so I got my mind put a little bit at ease because I think I have been a bit off point as far as the intention goes from some of these writings. Um, so yeah, I think like
But
I read one.
you're you're right, Lachlan. It's kind of jarring,
Mm,
like some of the things he says. Like you referred to that one the other week, where he basically, in one sentence, he's talking about smashing a jug in the same at the same level of loss as losing a loved one, a wife or something.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. I think yeah, I read something else. I wish I could remember where I read it, but they were sort of saying it's more about just focusing on what, not focusing on being worried about losing these things, um, to make you take more action while they're there to get more out of it. And I don't know, the Stoics are about sort of taking action with what you can control, which is what we're sort of finding with this stuff as well. So making sure that you just enjoy that moment, knowing that it's not going to last forever, and in general, focus on living a virtuous life instead of like if we talk about like losing, like say you're worried that your wife's going to leave you or something like that, and you're like jealously guarding your wife to make sure she doesn't talk to any other men or something like that, you're going to drive them away. Whereas if you're just like a good dude who loves your wife, yeah, you might still get screwed over. But I mean, if she's going to do that, she's going to do that anyway, right? But if you're a great husband and give her space and give her love, then everything will probably be all right. You know what I mean? And if it's not, then
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
going to be anyway.
you won't spend all your time, worrying about it and basically
Yeah,
not enjoying what you can. But I
yeah.
actually think one of the next quotes addresses that, funnily enough.
But just before we jump, I also think that this one nails like what's important to men when you really think about it. Like, if you can think of who you like as a man of a family, your responsibilities are like you keep your children safe, and then you keep your wife safe, and then you provide the home and that sort of stuff. Like that's always, well, not always, but for a long time that's been what the role of the husband is.
Mm.
Is they're the priorities. Protect the children, protect the wife, provide the home. So
Yeah.
the fact that he's gone straight after those three things, I think makes it really applicable to guys who have those things. Which back even now it's still the majority of men end up in relationships and having kids and that sort of stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting.
No, for sure.
All right, so 12. If you wish to make progress, abandon reasonings of this sort. If I neglect my affairs, I shall have nothing to live on. If I do not punish my son, he will be wicked. For it is better to die of hunger, so that you be free from pain and free from fear, than to live in plenty and be troubled in mind. It is better for your son to be wicked, than for you to be miserable. Wherefore begin with little things. Is your drop of oil spilled? Is your sup of wine stolen? Say to yourself, this is the price paid for freedom from passion. This is the price of a quiet mind. Nothing can be had without a price. When you call your slave boy, reflect that he may not be able to hear you, and if he hears you, he may not be able to do anything you want. But he is not so well off that it rests with him to give you peace of mind.
I'll just tell you straight up, I was getting a little bit confused with this passage, and so I did look up another translation. And a lot of stuff where they're talking about at the start with the with your son or your boy or something like that, they're actually referring to the slave along like through most of that text in the other translation that I had. So because he's talking about if I chastise my slave, or unless I chastise my slave, he will be bad. And it'd be better for your slave to be bad than for you to be unhappy. So it's just another sort of take to consider on that as well.
I wonder if that's a limitation with the Greek translation of were they talking about son or were they talking about slave? Like maybe it's a similar word or something.
It could be, but then they sort of switched it right at the end of the passage in our version as well. So they did sort of put in the so I'm not sure, but I don't know, maybe it was just a cock up in the original translation perhaps. It was done a long time ago from what I understand, the version we're reading, so it is possible. It is possible. Anyway, sorry, I thought I'd just lead with that very quickly.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
So what do we think? If I neglect my affairs, I shall have nothing to live on.
I like it. It's really balls to the wall to me. I'm like, yeah, he's just like, just commit, don't worry about it. Like, why worry about it kind of thing. He's like, if you're going to do... Well, when I first read that bit, I'm like, he's basically saying, if you're going to do something, just go all the way. don't worry about it.
It smells like socialism to me. It smells like, who cares, society's safety net will catch you. No, I'm joking. I think you're right. I think it means have a crack.
I think a lot of what he's... I think he's just sort of being hyperbolic a bit and exaggerating, just because in the context of the slave sort of thing, I think it's like, oh, you're dying of starvation. Like, was it because your slave's taking too long to bring you lunch? I mean, shit's not that bad, dude. Like, harden up.
You've got a slave, mate. It's like, you're going all right.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way. That's he's funny.
Well, because remembering that Epictetus was a slave too, so, and I think that's probably got some relevance to the way he's written this passage, because he's been on both sides, right? He was a slave, and then he has a slave like later on.
So related to this, then, have you ever gotten angry in a McDonald's drive-thru for them taking too long? Because I do. Sometimes I'll be there and I'll be like, this isn't fast food. I could have gone anywhere and got this instead of waiting on this motorway to pay $5.50 for this coffee. I could have gone to the cafe down from my house, watched them make it for me, hop back in my car and gone. It still would have been faster than this stupid thing, and it'd be twice as good.
Well, there you go. This is a life lesson for you, Tim.
Oh, come on. Surely you've been frustrated in a Macca's drive-thru.
You're better off. Yeah, you'd be better off skipping the coffee and being free of pain and fear. The pain and fear of sitting in that drive-thru. You'd be better off just not doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Will you be better to die of hunger? I'm not so sure. But I think when he's talking about that stuff too, he's talking about obviously, like, and I think it's really relevant for modern life, but like free from anxiety. And it's, is it worth causing so much stress over some of this stuff? And I think, like, similar to the previous chapter we were reading there, like, this is stuff that's pretty well ingrained in a lot of, like, particularly blokes, like you're saying, Tim, before. If you got, kids, wife, house to look after, this is stuff you sweat about sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Money starts getting tight, not sure what's happening at work. Do you start overthinking stuff sometimes? You're not sleeping properly at night because you're still thinking about it. So is it worth trying to park that stuff and going, what's going to happen is what's going to happen. I may as well still get my good night's sleep and not stress about the shit. It's easy to say that stuff, like,
easier said than done.
Yeah. But I think,
well, I liked the little bit where he says, for it is better to die of hunger so that you be free from pain and free from fear than to live in plenty and be troubled in mind. I didn't really want to say this, but I've got to be honest. When I read that bit, it made me think of that whole Will Smith debacle. I'm just like like that dude must be so messed up in the head and so troubled in his mind to get up and do something like that, considering the amount of money and influence that he's got.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'm just like, would you rather not have all of that money and power and influence or whatever, and not have that level of a troubled mind? Like,
for sure, they got some messed up stuff that's going on there. So I'm amazed that dude's still walking around working. To be honest, he's a broken.
That's what
man.
I mean. Like, to have that level of a troubled mind, like,
Totally.
what's the point of all that plenty?
For sure.
That's exactly what I've been thinking through for the last 3 or 6 months.
Yeah, right. I'm not saying you'd be better off dying of hunger. I wouldn't go that far, but as Lachlan pointed out, it's a bit of hyperbole. But, yeah, so you can expand on that if you want to.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about that. Like, I've got many toys, as you know. I think so. Something COVID exposed to me, because you couldn't really do anything for a while, and then straight after COVID, we've had these bloody floods and all this other nonsense. This wet summer that we've had. Like today, I took my motorbike for a ride. It's the first time I've taken it out. Sorry, second time I've taken it out this calendar year. So in 4 months, I've used it twice. And when you start seeing, I need to service it, I need to register it, it's but you're not using it, it becomes like this burden and this frustration rather than something that you should be happy to own, because you're like, oh man, I've got to spend another $1,000 on this thing that I haven't used, and now it's just being a pain in my backside because now I've got to go get it inspected by some mechanic and then go online and do all this stuff for what? Like, I don't even use the bloody thing. So and and if I didn't have that thing, would I need to earn as much money? Could I get a job closer to home if I ditch half of my stuff? And you start. So they're the questions you start asking. So it's very, very similar. And that's I think a lot of people are thinking that at the moment, which is why you're seeing this massive proportion of people changing jobs, because they've just gone, actually staying home isn't that bad. You don't need that much stuff to be happy. I think Netflix is a big part of that. Like, people just being able to have endless entertainment at their fingertips for $20 a month plus their internet. If you learn how to cook, you don't need to get takeaway every day. If you know how to cook, you can keep things actually relatively affordable. I think people losing their jobs or having to restrict their hours and getting lower income made them realise actually you can live on a bit less if you make some little sacrifices of things that you don't necessarily need.
I love how positively you're thinking there, Tim. I don't know that I don't know if I agree that the world is doing that, but I like the fact that you think that, though, because that just shows what a good person you are.
Heaps of people have left their jobs.
No, I agree with that, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think like people are still being like, because they've been at home, people have been ordering shit tons of shit online because they can't go out places, and I don't know if we talk.
Oh, I lost both of them. Okay, so what really happened there is I didn't like being disagreed with, so I turned off the interview. But what we're going to say is there was a technical glitch, and it cut everybody off for a few minutes. So anyway, so you disagree with me. Why am I a nice guy, and why do you disagree with me?
I think during COVID, people have been doubling down on sort of buying and collecting stuff because they've had nowhere to go, no holidays to have. So I reckon people have been spending more on useless stuff. Well, not useless stuff, but just stuff that they want. I mean, you could even say the same for like the cars and the boats and bikes and stuff like that. I mean, just look at the values and how they've been sort of shooting up.
I kind of agree, but I think the car issue is there's just no shipping anywhere. So everything that you would get from overseas you can't get from overseas, so everything that's here is suddenly worth more.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I think just because I'm sort of in the business, but there's just a lot more sort of packages and stuff sort of moving around because people are just buying more stuff online. Some of that was, of course, a necessity because we had lockdowns and things like that. But I think people just had no other outlet, so they're just collecting stuff because they're at home. But I would agree that people are certainly reassessing spending more time with their family rather than commuting or doing any of that sort of stuff. So I 100% agree with that. But I think you're a good person for thinking that way, Tim. Keep it positive, bro. I love it.
What are your thoughts, Ruben? You going to chime in on this, or are you staying like Switzerland?
I'm Switzerland, brother, on this one. I don't know. I like your mindset there, Timmy, and I've experienced a similar thing. But yeah, I think Lachlan's right. That doesn't mean the rest of the country's thinking that way.
Yeah, true. I will grant you that.
Yeah. I hope you're right.
What do you think?
I hope that's what's going on.
So what do you think? Coming back to this thing that we've read, what do you think he means is wherefore begin with the little things? Is your drop of oil spilt? Is your sup of wine stolen?
Yeah.
Do you think he's starting there after being on the other extreme to try and get people to baby step into this method of, like don't cry over spilt milk is essentially what he's saying.
Well, I don't know. It says wherefore, not therefore.
Oh, wherefore? Yeah, wherefore begin with
So
little things.
is he saying why begin with little things, or that you should begin with little things?
I think he's saying to begin with little things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
My English skills are just not up there.
This is a price paid for freedom from passion.
Yeah, this bit I liked. This bit I really liked. This is the price paid for freedom from passion. This is the price of a quiet mind. So that kind of ties into what you were saying, Tim. Like sometimes, like you say, having all these things and having to maintain them, sometimes you might have a more of a quiet mind if you just got rid of them. Just get rid of them. Like, you don't have to worry about it. No, but once again, I like the idea of, and I'd be interested in what you guys' thoughts are on this. The idea of there being a price for freedom from passion, because in my immediate response to that is that's very countercultural these days. The idea that being free of your desires is a good thing. I think it's a good thing, but I think society-wise, we seem to think the opposite of that these days. What do you guys reckon?
I 100% agree. We spend a lot of time talking in the Republic about trying to have balance and control over those parts of your mind, and controlling your desires was a life lesson you really needed to do in order to be able to get past and make more of your life. And so the idea that there's a cost involved makes sense, right? But should you get pissed if they spill a little bit of oil? Not really. If your slave pinches a bit of vino, I've got a slave and I'm living a pretty good life here, so I guess I shouldn't bitch and moan. That's a price of it's not just I suppose the price of like a good life. He's saying it's a price of the mental freedom. So I'm not going to take that cost of stressing about that. Is the cost of the wine worth more than the cost of the stress? And I think maybe that's how he's trying to get you to balance that up. It might be harder. Maybe that's why he's starting with something simple like that, because you can definitely weigh that up and go, it's definitely better to pay for the wine rather than have the mental strain. When you get onto something a bit harder, it might be harder to find that tipping point, which is worth more. You know what I mean? So I think maybe that's why he started that, you know, with the easy to tackle stuff, maybe as practice. You know what I mean? Get into the habit.
Yeah.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
I think it's a good way to think about it, though. It's not I lost my milk that I spilt. It's I've spilt some milk, and that's the price I get for. That's what I have to pay to just have a cool.
Not have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's a bit warped, maybe, but you can imagine like a
we had another bug, but straight back into Ruben. So it's like spilling a
bottle of whiskey. No, I was saying, like, yeah, if you've got an alcohol sitting on you got an alcoholic sitting on a corner with a bottle of whiskey, and some dude comes along and takes it and smashes it. If he had this mindset, the alcoholic would be like, oh, at least I'm free of that passion for that alcohol now because it's gone. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do when I'm written off later. But I mean, like, that would be a really healthy way for him to think about it. But let's face it, that's probably not going to be likely for an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I reckon we do one more. We spent quite a bit of time on these ones, but they're good ones, so why not?
That's cool.
We're used to that from our record with the Republic.
Yeah. Well, there's so much gold here. Okay, so 13. If you wish to make progress, you must be content in external matters to seem a fool and a simpleton. Do not wish men to think you know anything, and if any should think you to be somebody, distrust yourself. For now that it is not easy to keep your will in accord with nature, and at the same time keep outward things, if you attend to one, you must needs neglect the other. What do you guys think about this? This is something that I do at work, and it's not always well received, because I think people aren't used to people saying they don't know something, or being willing to say, like, I don't know. So, you know, what do you think? Is this a risky move in today's society to be at work and be like, I'm starting this new role, and I don't really know what I'm doing?
Well, the way I read it, I thought there's a risk here of people interpreting you as trying to avoid responsibility. Because, you know, someone comes to you for help and you're like, oh, I don't really know. To me, like, sometimes I think people these days would be like, oh, is it that you don't know, or that you don't want to do the work?
Hey guys, well, we keep trying to record and we keep having our interview software drop out. We're not sure if it's a server issue or if it's a my end issue or whatever it is. So we're just going to wrap it up there for this week, and I'll do some work through the week to try and get our technology more stable, and we'll be back next week. But just before we go, what were you guys drinking? Because I was drinking Japanese whiskey. What were you drinking, Lachlan?
I've got a Mornington Peninsula Pale Ale. It's rather delicious. Yeah.
Ruben?
And I had an Asahi Super Dry, a Japanese beer. Very, very good. And I just want to say, this is the price we pay for freedom from our passion to podcast.
Wow.
Or as Lachlan puts it, it is but a drop of oil.
Well, and on that note, we're gone again. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.